You mentioned that the government is mostly ran by 12 to 15 individuals in Congress. Who would you say these people are, and why do they get to make the decisions?
Speaker of the House, Majority Leader, Minority Leader, committee chairs, Senate Majority Leader.
Because they're like the conductors of all of the people beneath them, essentially.
Every single committee seat is decided by the Speaker. People don't recognize how much power a Speaker has.
When you say committee seat.
So Appropriations Committee decides where all the money goes. So let me use Virginia as an example because I'm very familiar with those committees. So we have a Finance Committee that decides the taxes. We have an Appropriations Committee that decides where the money goes. We have an Agriculture Committee that decides all ag policy. We have an Education Committee. We have a Transportation Committee. We have a Public Safety Committee. We have a Courts of Justice Committee. So each one of these committee chairs gets to select who their subcommittee chairs are. And then the Speaker gets to select who sits on what committees, and he can remove you from them anytime he wants. Now, there is some limiting principles on there because you can always, vote no confidence of the chair when it comes to the Speaker. We saw that with McCarthy, but that doesn't happen very often. Very, very little. So if you're the chair of appropriations, you're going to out fundraise me 20-1 just by virtue of being the chair. You get to decide the budget of Virginia. And if you serve on the Appropriations Committee, you will be voting for the budget. Or else you won't be on the Appropriations Committee. That's just reality. That's true on the federal level.
So that's the Speaker of the House that gets to appoint these committee leaders of these small little subcategories that get to decide things like regulations and environmental.
So the way to think about this is that there is a practical reason why some of this is done. So for instance, not every bill can go to the House floor, right? So what do? We have a committee structure. All right, so you got a bill on agriculture. Great. It's going to get assigned to the Agricultural Committee. The chairman of the Agriculture Committee is going to assign it to a subcommittee with a subcommittee chair that they picked. And they selected the composition of that subcommittee, usually to make sure that whatever outcome they want gets achieved. That bill goes before the subcommittee. It's heard. You bring witnesses. And the vast majority of that is kind of figured out based off of the ideological composition of that subcommittee. I would argue 60 to 70% of bills and most of your 67% of them die in a subcommittee, right? So 7 people saw it, like in Virginia. And there's a similar structure on the federal level as well. And again, that is not in and of itself nefarious. It's just a way of how are we supposed to manage 2,500 pieces of legislation in 60 days, right? We got to have a process for it. But if you're a committee chair, especially on the federal level, because the federal level is much different. One of the big benefits about state legislatures is that we tend to be citizen legislatures, which means we're not full-time legislators. Like I get paid $17,600 a year to be a delegate. That's not my job that pays the bills, right? That's enough money to cover like gas and expenses. Because that's what we're supposed to do, go serve and then go back and live in our districts. If you're in DC, that's a totally different world. And if you're not in one of those very, very powerful positions within the legislature, you're not deciding anything with respect to legislation. And if you want to one day be in a position to be able to do that, you better get really good at playing ball with the people that are currently in power. There's very, very few people. One of the reasons why Trump scares the living piss out of DC is that he is the first guy that kind of came in and said, screw all of this, and got elected. Now, when he got elected, what happened? Well, he had very powerful people within Congress that slow rolled a lot of it. And then the other thing is that really exposed the power of the bureaucracy. Because if you're in a position of senior management within the civil service side of the bureaucracy, the president can't fire you. It's almost impossible to fire you. I mean, you got to do something almost criminal. Now, what happens if you don't like what the president's doing? You slow roll it. You don't implement it the way it should be. You engage in some of that horrible customer service that the federal government and then all government agencies have become notorious for. And then in 4 years, you're gone. Okay, back to business as usual.
So what could people do about this? Because it seems like it's outside of a lot of people's control.
A lot of it. So the first thing I would tell people is it is not your civic duty to vote. It is your civic duty to know what the hell you're voting for. Like I can't stand this whole idea of, well, I voted because Taylor Swift told me. Dude, I voted because they have kind eyes. Like, holy crap, dude, you're not doing your civic duty to your country if you have no idea what policies you're actually advocating for when you cast that vote. So I want everybody to vote, but I want them to know what they're voting for and why they're voting for it. I think that's number one. Two, if you're someone that believes in more of a limited, constitutionally restricted government, which is to say, I don't need a government to micromanage my life. I want to be in charge of my life. I want the government to do government stuff, like build a road, keep me free from foreign invasion. I don't know. Lock people up for committing violent crimes. Right? That's what I want you to do, government. Thank you. We can handle the rest. Then you need to actually elect people that are dedicated to that. And the number of people that are actually dedicated to that is very, very small. And it doesn't fall neatly into, oh, well, they're a Republican, because Republicans advertise themselves as doing that, but there's actually a much smaller demographic of Republicans that are serious about it. Your Rand Pauls, your Thomas Masseys, some guys like that.